They have done it. Cabo Verde have done it. They are through to the knockouts of the World Cup on their debut. I cannot believe I'm saying it. And not only have they gone through, they have gone through in second place. This is one of the most incredible, one of the most historic performances on the World Cup stage. The third smallest nation to have ever qualified for this tournament. Having gone through so much as a country, having fought through the qualifiers, having fought through that game against Spain, they get the job done against Uruguay, and they have done it again against Saudi Arabia. A 0-0 draw. That is all they need. But this was not a 0-0 draw like that one against Spain, I can tell you that much. Cabo Verde were fantastic. And for the third time, we saw a different lineup, a different team, a different style. But for the third time in a row, we got the same result, which was a draw. Unbeaten going into the knockouts. Let's get into it. Hello, my name is Ali Howard. I'm an African football journalist here in America, and covering Cabo Verde has been one of the great joys of my life. And this is just another step on the road of excellence that this country has. I was trying to explain to my brother what Cabo Verde is in terms of a football nation, and my brother who I'm staying with. And he was kind of like, what makes them so good? Is it the coach? Is it, what is it? And I had to tell him, like, look, Cabo Verde is essentially a social experiment. And it is a social experiment where you say, let's take a tiny football nation and to get them to do every single thing right. And that's what you get when you get Cabo Verde, because it's not one thing, it's everything from the culture of Morabeza, the culture of, a team that is, has this no stress, has this ability to stay calm in big moments, has this, Morabeza translates as no stress in English, but it's more than that. It's this idea of hospitality, this idea of obligation, of this idea that actually representing Cabo Verde is so much more than that, and that plays into integrating the diaspora. This is a country that has probably the best relationship with the diaspora of any country in the world, I would say. The fact that in the US, if you're Cabo Verdean, if you're in Angola, if you're in Norway, you can vote in Cabo Verdean elections if you're Cabo Verdean in your own constituency, which is those continents, This is a country that gets it right. And then from the sporting culture, this is a country that prioritizes sport in throughout everything, in education, right from kids all the way through to high school. There's a reason why they overperform at everything they do. Handball, football, basketball, that's like this what they do, through to the federation, which is arguably one of the best run in Africa, despite only having 7 full-time staff. Down to the coach Bubista, who has just shaped this team so incredibly well. This is the most tactically flexible team we've seen at this World Cup. I'm pretty nailed on in terms of saying that. Everything they have done, everything that this team represents is just excellence. Excellence, excellence, excellence in everything. Not just technical football, not just the footballing side, in the culture, in the structure, everything. And that is what you get. That is the social experiment. This is what happens when you give a tiny nation everything and they do everything right. They get to the knockouts of the World Cup. Let's get into just how they have done this, because it is incredible. Oh, man, I'm just buzzing. Right, and I mentioned, this is a completely different match. This is a completely different game. So let's get into the squad, because like I said, this is a different spot. Okay, so Dylan Livramento comes back into the first team. He was dropped for the game against Uruguay because, again, they wanted a more physical presence in that game, and Dylan Livramento isn't as physical. He's better at link-up play. He's better at running in behind. He comes back in. Okay, Roy Duarte comes in, who I don't think he started the last game. He certainly didn't start the first one. His brother Laras did. Willie Semedo comes in, again, a bit more quality in the final third. And then I felt really, really bad for Sidney Lopez Cabral, their left back, who's been one of their best players, because that stat went round that in the first game against Spain, they only committed 1 foul in the whole game, which is incredible given that they only had like 25% possession. Cabral was the one who made that foul, and he got booked for it. And then he picked up a second booking in the Uruguay game, so he was suspended. But in comes, for him, João Paulo Fernandes. This guy has, again, a brilliant story. His dad was an electrician. He grew up in Cidade Rebelde, I think. And his father had to take off time from work and everything every single day to take him all the way down to Santiago, or to Praia, in Santiago Island to train. He was the victim of a scam from an agent who initially, the family put in a lot of money to try and get him to Portugal, and it turned out to be a scam. In the end, he ended up moving to Portugal and then Moldova, and now he plays in Romania with FCSB. Incredible story and really good football player. And you'll notice he's got the number 8 shirt. That's because he's really a central midfielder who's kind of become a left back. So again, it kind of signals that they want to dominate the ball in a way that they didn't in the first game. In comes Wagner Pina. He has been really unfortunate because he is arguably Cape Verde's best player. Like, genuinely argue. I mean, Logan Costa is definitely the best player, but he's been injured all season. And then you look, Willie Samido probably had the best season, but Pina probably has the highest ceiling. He plays for Trabzonspor at right back. He's linked with Fulham. He's linked with Nottingham Forest. He's linked with lots of Premier League clubs, French clubs across Europe, because he's a brilliant attacking right back. The problem is Steven Moreira in front of him has been a multiple MLS team of the season player, has been an MLS defender of the year, is rock solid and has been a part of this team. But again, in this game, in a game that they want to dominate, they bring in Pina, the more attacking option. And again, I think that just says so much about this team, in that this is the game that they just need to avoid defeat. That's all they need to do, is avoid defeat. And you'd think that pressure, that stress is going to make this team come within its shell, defend, play a more reactive football. But no, they went and dominated Saudi Arabia. And again, it's that, for me, and I wrote an article about this on Africa as a Country. You should look it up. I'll put a link in it in the description, and it's about how this idea of Morabeza, there's no stress, this kind of communal identity, this kind of the way in which this team relaxes, makes them so good at coming into pressure moments, because they are together, they are practicing being calm, being relaxed in these tense moments. Cabo Verde in 2013 became only the second African nation as a debutant in the 21st century to get out of the group stage at the AFCON. They and Equatorial Guinea, who were hosts when they did it in 2012, are the only two to have done it when it was still a 16-team format, aka the only teams to have come second or first in an AFCON on their debut. They are now the second team, or the first team since Slovakia in 2010 to, on their debut at the World Cup, get out of a group. And they did it by coming second. They didn't do it in this Jammy 48 team third place kind of way. They came second in a group with Uruguay, in a group with Spain, the favorites. But for me, it's that kind of culture that they've built up has allowed them to come into this game, this huge pressure match, and just ball out. And they did ball. Look at these stats. Possession, very even, right? And they were dominating it for most of the game, but towards the last 10, 15 minutes, they played a bit more in the break, and that's why Saudi creeped up. But look at this, expected goals, 1.52 to 0.4, right? Spain only generated 2.1 against them in that game. You know, this is not miles off that bombardment that Spain put on them. Total shots, 15 to 7. And bear in mind, they were the best chances they had, i.e. the last one, which I think it was Nuno da Costa missed on pretty much a tap-in, was just narrowly offsides from Gary Rodriguez. So even this number is kind of underestimating how much of a threat they carried. And you see it in the momentum graph. First part of the game, very even. And then after that first water break, surprise, surprise, that's when the game changes. Boom, the rest of the game, it's all Cape Verde. Yes, Saudi had a moment, but the rest of it is Cabo Verde. And again, it's their ability to play out. They play good football. They want to dominate. And again, as I said, completely tactically flexible, because in the first game, it was backs to the wall. They essentially just said, we're never going to attack. We're never going to try and create anything. We're just going to defend for our lives. And they did. They were so good at it. Second game, they were like, okay, we know Uruguay are going to press us. So what we're going to do is we're going to play more physical players. We're going to play on the break, and we're going to hit them hard, right? Third game, they say, okay, we're playing against Saudi Arabia. This is a team that we think we're better than. And so we're going to play better football than them. And they play their players that are better at dominating the ball. And that is exactly what happened. That is exactly kind of how they dominated this game. And again, like, huge performances. Ryan Mensch was so good in the first half. Like, was the kind of creator, because I think that's the one thing Cabo Verde do struggle with, like, is they're so well organized. They're very strangely good at taking really low XG chances and like making the most of being ruthless, which is like we saw that in the Uruguay game. What they aren't great at is like consistently creating chances and scoring them. That is something that they have always struggled with. That has been their kind of one thing that they really struggle with. Mendes was really good, and then when he was subbed off for Gary Rodriguez, again, 35 and 36. These are the geezers. These are the two guys who've been to every AFCON. I think Gary Rodriguez, no, he missed the 2013. But he's been there since 2013. He's been there since then, but he missed the 2013 AFCON. You know, these are the only two outfield players who remember that, aside from Stopiro, who's not getting any game time at this tournament and is kind of here as a vibes man. And they're the ones who are pushing this game on. Again, Jamiro Montero, I think, had a decent game. Kevin Pina, we saw a completely different side to him. Yes, he almost scored a 30-yard screamer because we know he can, but he dictated the game. He was in control of this game unbelievable performance from him. Like, every single player played brilliantly. Now, we have to get into the next round because the reward for coming second in a very, very tough group is these bad boys, Argentina. That's the reward, playing Lionel Messi. Oh my goodness, I feel so bad for them. Like, that is your reward. And look, coming into this tournament, Cabo Verde's story was qualifying for this tournament. That's what mattered. And they believed that they could get out of this group. I know that for a fact. I know that for a fact. And they think that they can get past Argentina. They genuinely do. Look, they're not crazy. They know that Argentina are the massive favorites. And yes, in the Spain game, if they had someone like Messi, i.e. Lamine Yamal, they probably would have lost. But they will go into this game full of beans, full of confidence, and with so much belief in what they can and can't do. And believe you me, they will have a game plan. They will approach this game properly. And whoever drops to the bench, whoever comes in, they will know exactly what they're doing, and they will buy 100% into it. Morabeza.